So basically we have three factors which affect the job design. Now there are various elements when we compare about the work nature and the ergonomics. Now environmental factors affect the job design to a considerable extent. Now jobs are nowadays become more employee centered rather than process centered. Hello everybody, a warm welcome to one and all. I'm Vidhyaashram from the Department of Commerce and Management in Vidhyaashram First Grade College, the Temple of Excellence. Welcome to all the students. Now here we are in the sixth session of job analysis and job design. I told you what exactly a job design is all about. Now we'll go with the next one, that is all about the factors affecting job design. So basically we have three factors which affect the job design. This question is a 15 marks question, or it can come to the 10 marks question. Very important session this is. Now you are supposed to write three of the factors. The first one is all about the organizational factor, environmental factor, and the last one is called behavioral factor. So there are three factors which affect the organization, that is in the job design. And here we have organizational, environmental and behavioral. If we go one by one, the first one is organizational factors. Now here in organizational factors, there are four things, that is work nature, ergonomics. Now I'll tell you about what exactly ergonomics is all about, then workflow and culture. So these are the four. Ergonomics in the sense, now it is a scientific tool which has been used to study that what a human can do and what exactly the work should be given to him. So it is all about a relation between work and the human being whom you are supposed to assign those work. Now when we go with the work nature, ergonomics, workflow and culture, we'll get to know that the factors which are affecting the job design is all like you have designed a particular job and you have taken a wrong person for that particular job to be accomplished. So that is what the organizational factors are. Now when we go with work nature, now there are various elements when we compare about the work nature and the ergonomics. Now the various elements of a job and job design is required to classify various tasks into a job or coherent set of jobs. Now the various tasks may be planning, executing, monitoring, controlling, etc. And all these are to be taken into consideration while designing a job. Now what exactly it is? That is, when you plan, you are supposed to think that is it feasible or not. When you execute it, and then if you feel that we can't achieve it, now that is where the job design will be having a problem. And when you start going for monitoring and controlling, what happens is when you're monitoring and the person isn't doing the job at all, or you feel he is not up to the standards, now what happens is the entire job design what you have done to that person, right, it will actually fail. Say the last one is controlling and other things, right? When you start comparing your other job designs with this particular job design, now what happens is controlling, sometimes it is very difficult because you should be there supervising those people. Now when we understand the job design factor here, human is heterogeneous, and what we are supposed to analyze from this job design in the sense, all the humans cannot be controlled the way you are controlling each and every person. So that is where there will be a problem when it comes to the work nature. That is, the laborer may actually have a different controlling techniques, the middle level management can have a different technique. So you can't compare both of them in the same controlling aspect. Second one is ergonomics. Now ergonomics aims at designing job in such a way that the physical ability and individual traits of employees are taken into consideration so as to ensure efficiency and productivity. So if you don't go with ergonomics, you will not get a proper job design. So job design is all about what? You should go with a proper design of a job which a person should actually accomplish all the tasks. Now all the tasks are split into small jobs, and that person should have the ability to complete those small tasks, and then he should actually go for the achievement of goal. So ergonomics will make sure that the person who is suitable for the job will be placed in that particular job. Next we have is workflow and culture. Now product and service type often determines the sequence of workflow. A balance is required between various product or services process, and a job design ensures these. Now when you go with this, the culture also plays a very important role, because organization culture determines the way tasks are carried out at the workplace. Practices are methods or the standards laid out of carrying out a certain task. These practices often affect the job design, especially when the practices are not aligned to the interests of the union. Now here what happens is, even the organizational factors, like when you go for any kind of a special design or a job design is done for it, but the nature of the culture of your organization will actually hamper the job design, because you are actually going for a different concept, but the job design and how they are supposed to process is totally different. So these are the 4 things which will differentiate, as well as it will affect the job design in the organization. Second is the environmental factor. When we go about environmental factor, that is all about the macro environment. Now environmental factors affect the job design to a considerable extent. These factors include both internal as well as external. When you go with the factors, the first one is employee availability and abilities. Now you should also consider the employees availability and the ability. Sometimes what happens is, you will get people who are really potential but you will not hire them. Sometimes you will not get people who are potential but still you hire them. Second is socio-economic and cultural expectations. So you will be expecting those students or the freshers, whoever comes to your company. Now what happens is, there is a problem with the ability as well as availability, as well as you will have something called the socio-economic and the cultural expectations. When we go with employees availability and ability, please understand, employee skill, ability and time of availability play a crucial role while designing the job. The above mentioned factor, that is, these are the factors: employee skill, ability and time, factors of the employee who will actually perform the job, are taken into consideration. Designing a job that is more demanding and above that their skill set will lead to decreased productivity and employee satisfaction. Sometimes what happens is, when those people are there and we have taken potential candidates and we don't pay them properly, so what happens is, they'll never come back. The same way what happens is, there are people who doesn't do work properly but still we pay them. Now what happens is, the productivity, there is a decline in the productivity. So sometimes availability and ability always plays a very important role. Next one is socio-economic and cultural expectations. Now jobs are nowadays become more employee centered rather than process centered. They are therefore designed keeping the employees into consideration. Now what has happened is, we have more people but we don't have potential people or potential candidates. Now what happens to the company, in the sense, there are so many people who wants to be filled from unemployment to the employment, but the company cannot actually take those things as advantage. The reason here is, people who really wants to work in a company or organization, they'll not be very much potential. Now people who are really potential, they'll start their own business. So this is what happens in the corporate culture. So in addition, the literacy level among the employees is also on the rise. They now demand jobs that are to their linking and completely, and which they can perform the best. Now when they have the competency and say people, they really go with their education also, but what they feel is, we have done so much degree or master degree or post graduation, but we are not getting the exact or the right job which we are supposed to do it. So these are the cultural behavioral which will affect the environmental in the long run. Next we have is behavioral factor. Now when we understand the behavioral factor, there are four of them. That is, first one is autonomy, feedback, diversity, and use of skills and ability. When we understand this behavioral factor or human factor, it is also called what? Human factor are those that pertain to human need and that need to be satisfied for ensuring productivity at workplace. Now there are these elements which I have already told you, that is autonomy, feedback, diversity, and use of skills and abilities are there. Next one we have, we'll be explaining each one of the topic. Here the first one is autonomy. Now employees should work in an open environment rather than one that contains fear. So you should never have that kind of autonomy. Now if you have that autonomy, people will not work for you. It promotes creativity, interdependence, and leads to increased efficiency. Next one is the feedback. Now feedback should be an integral part of work. Each employee should receive proper feedback about his work performance. Next one we have is diversity. Now here diversity, please do understand what exactly happens here in diversity is, when you go with any of the job and the job is like repetitive, now what happens is you get monotonous kind of a behavior. Now when you have that monotonous, what happens is that will lead to boredom. So that's the reason people should have a diversified or diversity kind of a job where you will actually go with more creativity and innovation. That is the reason we have this behavioral factor which will affect the job design. So we have, say, repetitive job often make work monotonous, which leads to boredom. That will definitely lead to boredom. And a job should carry sufficient diversity and variety so that it remains as interesting with every passing day. So you should always have a job where you should have the creativity thing, that is, I'll do something more, I'll learn something more. If you go with the repetitive, what happens is morning you will come at 9 o'clock, evening you go at 5 o'clock, and what is that you have done? You have done the same work. Next day also the same thing, 9 o'clock you will come, 5 o'clock you will go. So after a week or 2 weeks, you will start feeling that there is nothing called creativity, or there is nothing called learning, there is nothing called supervision kind of a thing. So what happens is the productivity will actually decline. But what division of work of Henry Fayol says is, Henry Fayol says we are supposed to get specialized in that nature. But here what happens is too much of doing the same work every day, right, for a month or 2 months or 3 months. Now the fourth month, what happens is, yes, you will have quantity but not quality. That's the reason here the behavioral factor will also affect the job design. Lastly, we have is use of skill and ability. Now here, use of skill and ability in the sense, a job design should be designed as in the employee's skills and ability should be used in that particular work. If his ability and skills are not used in the work, it's actually a total waste of whatever the job design you people have already done for that particular person. That's the reason these all are the factors which will affect the job design. So I told you a quick recall about it. Job design there will be a factors that will definitely affect the job design. That are 3: organizational, environmental, and the last one is all about behavioral. Now behavioral is also called as human factors. So these are the factors which affect the job design. Any doubt regarding this session, please do call us. We are always there to help you. Thank you so much. I'll see you when I see you.